we're going through the science of food, and it's sort of like a play on words because it's like food is a science, but like what happened to the Garden of Eden? Like what's going on there? And so I wanted to kind of have a play on that word, really, because we don't want to forget the Garden of Eden, but it's nice to kind of know like how stuff was made, right? And so we'll hit all aspects and the good and the bads of the different aspects of it today. But how many of you guys really kind of have this sense that we are really in trouble when it comes to food? Is anybody like, I just want to know, like, is anybody like, nah, I don't really know anything about that? Or do we all really kind of have a sense of like, we're in trouble? Okay. So I just want to kind of get a feel for where everybody was regarding that, because we are going to kind of go into some stuff that's really troublesome. You know, we think about the shortages that are going on in the world too. I don't know how many of you guys have been affected by the shortages, but we, you know, going through a flood and having both offices actually be flooded, we were very much affected by the shortages just because of supplies not being available to build. And then when you did have stuff available, it was like quadruple the price for supplies. So when it came to like building things, and then next thing you know, it's like, you know, you hear patients having trouble with baby formula. That was another big one that came out. It's like, what? You know, people who aren't nursing but do need to make sure they are feeding their kids. And I literally are hearing stories of people trying to figure out how they're going to do that, because there were several certain brands that people just couldn't get access to. And then I literally, just before I came out here, so it ranges from the shortages, like the concerns of what's going on with our food supply. We actually just had a talk, was it last month, 2 months ago, on regenerative farming, right? So we talked about regenerative farming. And if you didn't get a chance to make it to that talk, we're trying to, the recording didn't work well. So we're going to try to get that. We're in the process of trying to fix the recording so that way you guys can hear that. But Paula actually took all the action steps from the actual class and went home and made like a backyard oasis that we might all be eating at her house very soon. Between her and Wendy, right? Literally 10 seconds before I came out here, I get a message from this group that I'm a part of. And they said, this is what they sent me. They said they are, let me keep from tripping. They're already preparing us to replace common snacks with, what's the word there?
Crickets.
Do you see it?
Bugs.
This is what I got 10 seconds before I came out. They're preparing for us to replace common snacks with insects. I just want to show you guys that. Okay. This was 10 seconds before I walked out the door. I'm like, did you know I'm doing a talk on this? Like, what's going on? And so we're going to get into some of the stuff that's out there. I want to give you one fun little piece of good news. We get all day long. Our office is like a miracle making machine that happens all day long in all of our offices because he is here. It's so fun. I just got this one just before I came out too. The patient texted Dr. David and said, great news. Thanks to you educating us on gut health and the importance of, because so she came to the poop talk that we just had a little bit ago. My husband and I, and the importance of prebiotics, probiotics. Over 20 years, they've been regularly doing colonoscopies. And they had their scheduled colonoscopy, they got their results back, and they had 0 polyps, of which they get polyps on their colonoscopy, showed up every single time they get them done. And so because of the stuff that we've been teaching, she's like, no more polyps, and praise the Lord, you know, your teaching has made believers out of us. And so thanks for your precious prayers. Like that's just, like those are, so we get the insects and then we get the, you know, we get the another positive. Let me give you another positive one because I'm about to rock your worlds here in a minute and I need to give you guys something positive. Okay, so over the weekend, over Labor Day weekend, we get this message from a patient. So she has a 3-year-old who has severe sleep apnea. Just imagine that for a second. A 3-year-old with severe sleep apnea. Comes into the office, gets very first adjustment, this little one. And we get a text message following up after this treatment from the following night. And the mom says, I'm kind of freaking out. Because think about how she's lived her life every night. Like waiting to hear, like listening to the sound, like every night when she goes to bed, just making sure, sleeping in the same bed, making sure she can hear. Like, can you imagine just like the cortisol levels, the stress that she goes through? She says, I'm kind of freaking out, but also trying to keep my head about me. Here's why. My son was breathing better last night than ever before. He didn't even really have much done at the office. She's the first time she's ever been adjusted. She doesn't really even know what all this is, right? Dr. David literally did a hug and something to the neck, and like I don't really know what. And then in one night, last night, he was breathing totally normal. Capital letters, normal. In another position, he was breathing with a little tiny snore, but not the gasping that he's done before. Like he normally needs to be put on life support. This is the mom. And so she's like, I'm keeping my eye on him, but wow, like totally blown away after one treatment, one adjustment, one night of just peace for this mom. And so these are the kind of things that I want to give to you before I start showing you some of this stuff right now, because you're going to kind of freak out with some of the stuff I showed you. You guys ready?
Back in April 2021, I posted a video on this channel by the Ice Age Farmer, who described how Mr. Biden had signed a United Nations agreement limiting you to being able to eat only 4 pounds of meat per year from 2030. In November 2016, the World Economic Forum posted a video not only telling us that we would own nothing, rent everything from billionaires and allegedly be happy, but also that we would eat a lot less meat and that meat would be an occasional treat. That really wasn't meant to rhyme. This raises a big question. What would be the source of protein in our diet to replace the meat? In this era of deliberately engineered food, resource and energy shortages, the globalists are starting to unveil their answer. Consider looking very closely at your food labels from now on, especially if you're buying processed foods and food that includes organic ingredients. You see, manufacturers are now starting to put insects, bugs, into snacks and into the food products that you see on the shelves in the supermarket. For example, product on the screen is marketed as a cheese puff snack. And you can see an ingredients list on the right that it has organic cricket flour. So despite the appearance on the packet that, makes it look like a cheesy puff snack, and this product is actually sold in Canada, it contains, you've guessed it, dead, ground up cricket bodies, the bodies of insects, and they've put them in human food. Now, this isn't the first time that we've been encouraged to eat insects. We had Angelina Jolie, former actress and wife of self-confessed Satanist Brad Pitt. Then there was also Nicole Kidman, who tried to tantalise us in this Vanity Fair video. She, like Jolie, is another Coppell associate. A few lesser-known celebs have also tried bugs on TV talk shows, including Jessica Biel, who is now married to Justin Timberlake, and actress Salma Hayek, who told David Letterman that people in Mexico eat certain insects. To you, eating insects might not be repugnant. You might say, so what? People in Southeast Asian cultures and some South American cultures have eaten insects for generations. We too, in North America, Europe and Australasia, We could eat them. Yes, we could, just like cows, chickens, turkeys, and all of the other farm animals and wild animals. There are 3 reasons to be concerned about putting bugs in human foods. The first is that insects contain parasites. It doesn't matter if they are organically farmed, such as the ones sold in that Canadian puff snack that you saw, or whether they are genetically modified grown insects, such as those that are put into insect farms. And there is one insect farm that recently got permission to start up in Canada and got government money. You're looking at a video of a parasite that's inside a praying mantis, and the parasite is actually animating the praying mantis. You're going to see it come out. And this is why you don't want parasites inside your body, because you're going to see how big these things are. When parasites do get into the body, they drain your body, of your vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. They get first dibs of the nutrients and energy flowing through your bloodstream. And once parasites no longer get what they want from you, or there's a better environment, they will leave your body, just like this one. Parasites can invade your liver. They crawl around inside your body where they reside in the brain and other organs, and they get a regular supply of nutrients. My first reason to not eat bugs is that they can contain parasites and you won't know about it. But don't take my word about it. Let's look at something from this article published back in 2019. The article says that insects can be pathogenic to humans. That means the insects and the parasites inside of them can be disease-forming. In this research paper from 2019, the authors looked at insects obtained from 300 different sources in Europe, such as pet stores and insect farms. They took insects from each of these 300 different sites, these locations. They chilled the insects, or they were hibernated, and then they dissected the digestive tract out of the insect, and then they ground up the digestive tract for each one. Then they examined the ground up digestive tract for larvae of parasites, so larvae being sort of eggs, basically. Here's the upshot. In 91 of these different sites, these farms, the insects sampled contained parasites that were potentially pathogenic, disease-forming to humans. And the authors suggested that insect farms should be monitored for parasitic pathogens.
All right, is everybody going to throw up now? Yeah. So it's no coincidence that I get a text before we start talking about these cricket, snacks. If you're on Herb Family Friends, are you guys all on Herb Family Friends? Somebody posted about crickets about a few weeks to a month ago. And it was the one that was in this video here. So they are selling them. I was actually going to have a bag for you guys here to show you guys that this is what's going on. And what you'll see is Hollywood will try to normalize this. If you go back and you watch, this video is about an hour long. We're not showing the hour. I just wanted to take out parts of it just to kind of give you a glimpse of it. But what they're doing is they're actually growing, and they have these farms. The whole idea is that they're grinding up trash, carcasses, dead stuff, garbage. They're grinding it up and they're feeding it to the crickets, and then they're feeding us the crickets. So the whole idea is cleaning up the earth, right? And we're going to be the beneficial, we're going to be the landfill. I mean, that's the idea behind it. So I actually pulled that article out. I was like, okay, yes, gross. And then the next thing I saw, this one. Now they started normalizing cannibalism when Katy Perry came out with her song Bon Appetit. Did you guys ever watch the video? Write it down and just look it up. And it's literally a video of her being the meal. And again, normalizing cannibalism. If you watch one of the interviews, she said, she was like, oh, humans are so picky and they're so whatever. I mean, cannibalism is a delicacy. And so these are the types of things that, remember, if you start to see Hollywood, talking about it, they're trying to, and you're seeing it in commercials and now you're seeing it in foods, they're trying to normalize it. Like, guys, what's the big deal? If we go back to the Bible and we go back to people in the Bible who did eat locusts, right? That did happen. However, it wasn't part of the everyday, right? And there was sort of kind of a reason behind all that. And it wasn't the food that they had, even the bugs they had back then didn't have the poison in it, right? Like the intentional poison that we have right now that's going on in the world. So different ball game. But again, I just wanted to make sure, I know it's kind of a shock value, but I wanted to make sure, I really feel like our patients are the most educated in these areas, and it's going to be really up to us in this room to be able to help equip everyone around us, because honestly, think about it. Let's be real honest. Most of us would go to the grocery store and we would have picked up those snacks because it looked organic, especially if it was sold at Sprouts. And if it's organic cricket flour, right? So not only was shopping already difficult, but that's why we're bringing stuff to you guys so that you guys can be, learning about this. We've got to start filling up our pantries if you already haven't been doing that, making sure you have extra water. But again, the protein, this is going to be one of those things that we're going to want to keep in stock. Okay, let's just say it like it is. Looking at this picture here, what do you feel like is missing? Like, what do you see in the picture? What do you feel like is missing? Do you see the difference between? Right. And so that's literally how we run all of our farms here, is the dead, the spraying, the airplanes flying over. Have you guys ever been on the road where an airplane flies over you and they're dumping all that stuff? Turn the vent and turn everything off if that ever happens. Because that's just straight up, that poison is this straight up poison going on our food, on our crops. And you notice how the soil, like everything's dead on that side. You go to the side where they've got the green, you've got the roots going deep in there. That's really what we're looking for and where we want to go to, is that regenerative farming. Again, Paula, you learned a whole lot from that talk. And what I saw, if you guys go on, she's posted on Herb Family Friends the pictures. Maybe post some of the pictures of the process too. Since we don't have the video yet, maybe some of the steps to it, that one might be good for other people who, you don't have to have a big yard or even apartment you can do. Like, she really showed how you can grow food. And I grew up where everybody had a farm, and then I came to Texas and we don't do farms, because as we get older, we don't do that. We should go to the grocery store. Well, I feel like we're coming full circle into a season where we're going to need to learn how to do that. And for me, I did a terrible job my first time around trying to grow stuff. So I'm like, I need a lot of help in the area. That's the reason why I invite people like Wendy to come out and do it. Now, the other thing too, looking at the regenerative agriculture. So regenerative farming is you guys heard the term regenerative. That's the new term. So regenerative farming, that's really the term where we want to go. Regenerative seeds, regenerative farming, regenerative agriculture. That's really where we want to go, because that's really the God side of things. And so there's a difference between the till and the no-till. I didn't know those things. I grew up and my sister, I remember tilling the garden. There's a whole process in the last talk that we went through, just kind of explaining all that. But it's beautiful, and it's really where we want to go. Based upon where we've been over the past, 30 years, maybe more than 30 years, you can see a trend going on with the obesity levels, the sicknesses, and let's just take obesity, because if we're obese, then that basically is the comorbidity for lots of other diseases, type 2, diabetes, cancers, autoimmune. The obesity is that foundation that really allows to grow all kinds of other diseases. And so back in 1990, if you look at 1990, you can see the blue color where it shows 10 to 14% of the population in that time frame were obese. So that means over 30 pounds for a 5'4" person. So 10 to 14%, you look at where Texas is, you can kind of see where we were in 1990. And then just kind of keep your eyes on the screen. Look at, now we've added a dark blue, so now we're in the 13 to 19%. And look at 94, we've got, you know, even more in the dark blue. And now half the United States, maybe more in 1995, has that. So now we're talking almost 1 in 5 in 1995, 1 in 5. In 1998, now we're greater than 20, okay? 1999, when I had my son, now look at Texas, we're greater than 20. Now look at 2000, more than half is greater than 20. Now 2001, now we've got a greater than 25%. So if you think about it in the 2000s, if we pay attention to all the things we were told then, which is, you know, no fat, low fat, right? Those are the things we were told. Let's have margarine, or I can't believe it's not butter, right? These were all the things that we were told. It's a really big, huge agenda. And if you want more on that, like that's where we get into a lot of that in our book. If you guys didn't get a chance to get a copy of our book, Chemical Religion, we've got a couple chapters where we hit on that. But just keep your eyes. 2002, now look, we're got a lot more greater than 25, 2005. Then we got a new color on the chart, so we're greater than 30 now. You guys see? 2007, 2013, now we've got another color on the chart. And look at the comparison between 85 and 2014. So you're talking about just over the span of 30, you know, just shy of 30 years. Now we've got an over 35%. And so here's kind of where we are 4 years ago. So we're looking at, you know, almost 40%. And what is that? That's 1 in every 2.5 people. That's a thing. Do you see where we've gone from, like, we were 20%, like now we're 1 in every 2.5? And if we don't take it seriously and we don't do something dramatic, and it's going to require us doing dramatic things. So maybe it's not being popular, or maybe it's not fitting in with our friends and the church events and the school, after school parties and things like that. But I think it's going to take us being really different and dramatic, bringing a recipe from the cookbooks that we have in the office and showing people, here are the ingredients, try this. And being that example, like today, Paula, I'm so proud of you, like where you're at with your testimony, because you have not taken your foot off the gas. And you are still getting great results with your weight loss and your health and everything. I'm just really proud of you. And it's been like all year that you've been working on this and working really hard. And yet you still keep on getting the results that you're getting. I'm super proud of you for that. So Blue Cross Blue Shield is showing a major decline in the health of millennials. So this is 2019. By the age of 27, they're looking at diseases and diagnoses, and they're actually clueless to it. They think that they're healthy. If you poll them, because they're comparing to what they see around them, and everyone around them is really sick. So we keep doing we're looking at the next gen like being the sickest that we've had, because looking at these stats just from Blue Cross Blue Shield, I mean, those are huge payouts that they're having for people. Now, what do you see this wrong with this image? Okay, what do you see on the back? Okay, what is that shirt? Does anybody recognize that shirt? Where does it come from? What store is that shirt from? Looks like a Sprouts shirt, right?
Looks like right down the road here. What's one in the parking lot?
So it's healthy living, right? And do you think, like, it's interesting what that kind of, it's really a picture of, like, we know a lot of times what to do. It's just that, man, the pull, the pull in to go into Starbucks, the pull to go into our favorite French fry place, the pull to Whataburger, the pull to, right? We know a lot of times what to do, but man, the pull and the flavor enhancers are like strong pulls. And so again, it's going to require like us to be like, recognize that, yeah, like this stuff tastes really good. It does taste good. They've done some things to make sure it tastes good. But if we keep doing what we, because our flesh is, calling for that, it's going to be every other person diabetic, every other obesity, right? And so that's the reason why we have the 5 essentials. And really, I feel like the 5 essentials, if we fall off track, just go back to the 5 essentials. If you kind of feel like you're working really good on 2 of them and you kind of got 2 of them dialed in, then look at what next one you can begin. Maybe exercise sucks for you. Maybe it's non-existent, but you're feeling really good on 2. Then start to add that next one. But don't quit starting over and don't quit referring back to the 5 essentials. That's really my biggest piece, because the testimonies that we get before and afters, 50 pounds down, 100 pounds down, 50 pounds down, 30 pounds down, 50 pounds down, 49 pounds down, 59 pounds down, 44 in 5 months, 108 pounds down, a whole person down, right? And so that's the kind of stuff that we see in the office, and that's how we take ourselves out of like the doing what everybody else does kind of category, because we don't want to keep getting what everybody else is getting. We want to be different. We are supposed to be set apart, right? For the kingdom. If God's going to work through us, and we know that he has a gift and a call and a talent for each one of us, but if we're hindered by our health issues, then we can't really execute the thing that he's called us to do, because then we focus on us and our health issues. And that's really not his best for us. So that's why really living out those 5 essentials are really important. Let's get into a couple myths these are lies that we've been told, or maybe we tell ourselves, I have bad genes. I'm going to go through quite a few different myths. If you have somebody in your family that has a breast cancer diagnosis, I have quite a few patients that come in here and they have elected to take their breasts off because of the fear of that. Again, that's a myth, and it's a lie the enemy will use. And we want to be careful we don't partner with a lie. We only partner with what God says in his word about us. And so not a lie, and that would be a lie. There's a new field called nutrigenomics, kind of a mouthful. Can you guys say it? Nutrigenomics. There's a new field. You might have heard epigenetics. There's a new field, nutrigenomics. And nutrigenomics is really about how your nutrition can turn on and it can turn off genes. So nutrigenomics. And when we hear that our family members have certain genes that kind of make us nervous, maybe it's a heart disease or whatever that gene is, if we can keep in mind what they've shown about nutrigenomics, we actually can turn these genes off, the ones we don't want, and we can turn the ones on that we do want. So if you take broccoli, that's the reason why it's in all the cancer books, how to prevent and overcome cancer, broccoli is. Because it flips a switch on and it talks to your own DNA and your cells, and it tells it to protect, antioxidant, detoxify. It tells it to do several things. And so we want that in our food. We want our food to tell our body, our own genes, to act right, sit up straight, do right. We want it to do that. And so the food that we eat will do that for us. Now, if we do this, the Whataburger is going to tell us something different, right? We literally turn on and turn off genes based upon what we're putting in our mouths. And so that's why we want to be careful of the crickets. We want to be careful of the normalizing of, they even in this article talks about cockroaches, mealworms, migratory locusts. And when you watch the rest of the video, it is so disgusting. Imagine all these dead fish carcasses in a trash dump, and people pouring their trash on top, and they grind it, and then they throw the crickets in there to eat it. We are what they eat. If we decide to eat that, my God, look at what's going to happen. So again, you're turning on and turning off genes, and we want to turn on the right genes, right? So foods to avoid, we want to stay away from the processed carbs and the sugars. If you like that beautiful brownie or that beautiful cupcake, make it. Just make an advanced plan cupcake. I ate a cupcake today. And it was, made with, the swerve and the mix for the topping on top, or cream cheese, and it was the swerve. It was beautiful. And then the brownie mix right there, I usually use this for a lot of the brownies and stuff. So you can make a lot of things. It takes effort because it's different than what you're used to doing. It takes you making your mind up and saying that you really want to learn how to do it. I love the Harvard Medical School report saying the human genetic potential is for 120 years of life, but here's what I think is limited in that. Moses was 120 years when he climbed, right? The Bible says neither was his natural force abated nor his eyesight dim. So he climbed a mountain to go be with the Lord, right? He didn't have the covenant that we have now with Jesus. So to me, this is kind of a limiting number, but that's just where the Lord and I are having a conversation about that one. So identical twins, they did a study that I'm going to go through a couple different twin studies, but did you guys know that twins, they typically die 10 years apart from each other? But if you think they have the same genetics, and it's the genetics that really will allow them to live as long, this kind of proves lifestyle changes. The agouti mice, that's another really great study where they actually had two identical genes. These mice are literally identical, but they had different environments that they actually were in and how they were fed. And so then they turned out very differently as far as one being fat and overweight and the other one not, because of how they were fed. They did a study on the agouti mice. Dean Ornish, this guy, do you guys know who Dean Ornish is? Anybody? Fascinating guy, Jewish heart doctor out of New York who really would take terminally ill heart patients and he would reverse their disease just by the things that we teach in the office, the 5 essentials: lifestyle, exercise, diet, stress, and he would totally turn things around. And they took 48, so a total of 501 genes turned on and turned off, literally changed dramatically in this research study just because of lifestyle change. So if we could take all of you guys and in our offices, measure what's going on with your genetic activity, this is the reason why sometimes you can't put a finger on like why you're healthier than everybody else, or why. Maybe you can't really measure what that is, but your genes are literally turning on and off. The right one's on, the wrong one's off every time you go in there and lay on that table and get adjusted. Every time you come in and you learn about a new recipe and you go home and you do that. I love this study too. This guy, Dr. Norman Shealy, he wrote the book Soul Medicine. And so what he did was he actually, a lot of his stuff is about telomeres. And so that's really the tips, the ends of the chromosome there, you guys can see. And the length of the telomere will tell you how old or how young you'll be. And so what they found is that through, when he calls it soul medicine, so acting right, eating right, moving right, like that's his thing, which is diet, exercise, and kind of stress. And what he did was by doing changes in lifestyle, they remeasured, and 90 days later, they found that the telomeres stopped shrinking. And after 10 months, they found the telomeres increased by 3%. So it's really proved that you can age backwards when you do the right things with your body. And so you're going to probably start seeing a whole lot more about telomeres and crickets, just so you know, coming out very soon. Okay, yes?
Just recently, I got an email that Starbucks also has crickets in the Brazilian coffee already. It is being sold.
I'm glad you said that because it is happening. We are going to have to, probably Herb Family Friends would be a great place. Like if you get in and you see it, take a picture of it, and it's sort of a warning for all of us. You know, like, hey guys, pay attention. This new, quote, Brazilian coffee, it's got crickets in it. Like, we've just got to help each other. That's the reason why this test is going to probably be very, very important. This is the stool test, the GI test. You take one sample of your stool, and I got mine done. You guys probably saw my results of the poop talk, and I had parasites, and I didn't even know. like, what? Well, I got parasites when I opened the clinic in Zimbabwe. And so I was on my maintenance, because after you have parasites, there's like something you do every week to maintain it. You don't get them anymore. When the flood happened, all my alarms and everything went off, and I stopped maintaining any of that stuff. And so parasites came back. And so I'm like, dang. But that's why I was really happy that I did that. It showed it a full-on infection, pathogenic infection that can set me up for disease. And dysbiosis was 10 out of 10. So I had a 10 out of 10 infection and 10 out of 10 dysbiosis. So we're going to have to be really careful. I think a way that we can protect ourselves is to maybe use that. You know, anytime you find something, let's post it on Herb Family Friends, because I think this is about to go completely blow up. I mean, I really think it is. If you look at these two caterpillars here, they actually, is another study where they actually took these and they're identical. And they were grown in two different environments. And so look at the difference between the size, the color, right? And it really just goes to show you, go back to nutrigenomics, how your genes will change dramatically just by your environment. And the good news about that, I think, that is important for us to know is that should empower us, that we can literally, every time we change our mind about the next meal, that's changing our own genes. So that's kind of empowering, and that's the good thing about that. Another myth is calorie is a calorie is a calorie, right? But you know, you can see the Twinkies and you can see the almonds. And if you follow some of those diets out there that literally just count calories, you're going to be in trouble if you count calories and you're not paying attention to the type of calories that you're putting in. A good nutrition self-check, just check your checkbook. That's a good nutrition self-check to see how you're doing. Like, just look at your check every week. Just look and go, like, how am I doing my nutrition? However many times you went to the ice cream place or Whataburger or whatever, right? Just look. I do this with my kids every week. It's painful. My two kids are at college, and I'm like, God help them. Don't kill them. You know? And so when I see salada on there, like, okay, well, there was a good choice. Yes, you know, I have two college kids. You guys remember being in college? Like, I'm just like, thank God. Okay, they're cooking. They bought groceries, you know? So we can do that for ourselves too. Just a little self-check. See how many times you went to Starbucks, right? That's a really good way to figure out how to save some money too, right? And stop supporting Starbucks. I would encourage everybody to stop supporting Starbucks. But again, you could just look through that. And what's the deal with Starbucks? It is so addicting, right? You can drive by and look at the symbol and your body just goes, right, toward it, right? They've got you just like the ba-da-ba-ba-ba, right? All these different songs and all that just pulls you right in. It's really, really crafty marketing, but we're better than that, right? Okay, breaking through mental barriers. I feel like the biggest one is it's too expensive. That's a big mental barrier, right? And I feel like another one is, a big one is, I'm going to be deprived if I don't eat, you know, healthy stuff, I'm going to be deprived. Those are a couple big mental barriers that we have. And so one thing I always just like to tell people is you're going to pay one way or the other. It would be better if you pay on your own terms by buying good, organic, right, foods. You'd be better to pay on your own terms than to pay because you got diabetes or some sort of a diagnosis, you know. So we just got to, and I think also I like to tell people that if you start saying, I want to, I like to, it's my idea, rather than Dr. Kimberly's whacking me over the head and I'm mad at her. I want to, I choose to, I like to, it's my idea. You got it, that kind of can help change your mind a little bit. 3 major dangers. So you might want to write these down. Too much sugar, it's going to be your big major danger. Too many toxins, and not enough good fats. Those are going to be your 3 major dangers. So I'm going to go through that a little bit and make sure we kind of dial that in a little bit. The way that you can revolutionize your diet is by 4 major changes. Clean up your carbs. They're kind of like catchy little phrases. Clean up your carbs, fix your fats, perfect your proteins. So doing things like this, perfecting your proteins, not cricket flour, perfect your protein. and then trash the toxins, get rid of those toxins. Those are kind of the 4 little major changes to be able to do. Did you need that? I'll go back to it again. You got it? Okay. So sugar high, the first one in the major changes. The top 10 reasons to avoid sugar. I used to have this one printed off, and I would have the kids put this on the refrigerator. And there's a really great film if you're a sugar kind of an addict. It's called That Sugar Film. It's a British kind of comedy play on education. It's brilliant, brilliantly done. And this guy actually decides to just eat the everyday diet that people are eating. And he doesn't do candy bars and sodas. He just does the everyday diet and does his labs every week. And he does it for a period of like 90 days. And by the end of like 2 weeks, he had liver, congestive liver, like all these diabetes. He had diabetes, all these markers. And they were like, are you sure you want to carry on with this study that you're doing? And it's funny, but it's also eye-opening because he shows you your labs and what he does. This standard American diet, he just follows that. Amazing. If you look at number 10 on the top 10 reasons to avoid sugar, it promotes what? Cancer. So we know that it promotes cancer because we know that they use it for a what scan? Do you guys know that scan? PET scan. It's radioactive, right? Sugar. And so you swallow that, and the idea, because we know when we eat sugar, it goes to wherever the area is that cancer is, and cancer loves sugar. So it becomes that fuel source. That's the reason why they do it in the PET scan, because it'll go to the area and they can find it quickly. That's the whole idea behind it. Now you got radioactive stuff in your body. You know, no worry about that. Just leave that in there. Okay. So the next, but what kind of sugar is worse? Do we know? We know about all the artificials. The packets on the table, right? Those are going to be worse. And so we can do things like stevia is going to be my number 1 preferred for you guys because you can grow your own stevia plant. And so that would be something you can grow naturally. Monk fruit. And then the sugar alcohols are the ones that have the OL on the end. Those are sugar alcohols. Sometimes they create a lot of digestive issues with people, so you just have to be careful with those. Okay, next myth, fat makes you fat. Isn't that what we've been told? That's a lie. We've been told fat makes you fat, right? It's not the fat that makes you fat. It's the bad fats. It's the bad fats that hurt you. So good fats, not altered by man, those are the good ones. This is the kind of stuff you want to make sure you eat a lot of. You want a larger than 50% of your diet to be consumed with this, okay? If you're on advanced plan, 65% of your diet should be made up of these good fats if you're on advanced plan. So if you kind of look at your plate, best way is like look at the plate that you eat. Like think about if you're eating 3 plates of food a day, like look at the plate and just look at the percentage of what's on your plate. Is it made up of a carb? Is it made up of a protein? Is it made up of a fat? Sometimes it's made up of a protein and a fat, right? If it's organic, grass-fed, and finished meat, that'll be your protein and your fat. But just look at your plate. You can kind of get an idea of what these good fats are and bad fats. And you want to pay attention to things in packages that say hydrogenated, trans fats, rancid vegetable oils. Pay attention to those. Even the ants don't want them. They don't. They threw this plate out. It's got, I can't believe it's not butter and margarine and regular butter. And the ants only would go to the regular butter. So they don't want the rancid. That's just in nature. Right? In nature. Another myth is fat in meats causes heart disease, cancer, osteoporosis, and kidney disease. Just a total lie. You have to have good fats for your cell membranes. It's the preferred fuel for your heart. It's anti-plaquing, antifungal. Like it's all those things are really important for you. So they just keep telling us all these lies. So that's why we go buying things that are part of the lies that they tell us. What we want to do is we want to change so if you're going to look at your grocery list, so if you're a little nervous about the budget and the grocery list, always make sure that you put your dollars toward your meat and your dairy first. It's the most expensive and it's the most beneficial it'll keep, because you can't wash out. Like if you get an apple, you can wash, if it's, if you pick an apple and it's been sprayed, you can wash that off as long as it's not growing in that. But you can't do that with beef and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're grass-fed and finished, free-range chicken, wild-caught fish, and your natural source of dairy. If you can find a farmer's market that has a co-op that you can get dairy from, that's full dairy, like unpasteurized, all that, that's a great, if you can, I'll always ask your local farmer's market if they have a co-op or somewhere that you can get that. I actually used to have in Coppell a place they just bring it over there and drop it off. And we would get goat's milk and, we would get cream and we would get all kinds of stuff. And it's getting harder to find that. But if you find a place, it's gold. So just make sure to kind of hang on to that. Another myth, you need 5 to 8 servings of grains every day for a healthy diet. The grain that we have now is not the grain that, we had back in biblical times. So we got to stay away from grain. It's very hybrid. It's very unhealthy. It's high in gluten. All of them are. And it's just, it's pretty scary, actually, the grain that's out there right now. So, yeah.
Well, when you say that, as a kid, I remember we'd have a loaf of bread that would last for 2 weeks.
I know. Exactly.
I mean, it grows mold in 2 or 3 days.
It didn't, and back then, too, I feel like when I was growing up, it wasn't as much like you could eat the whole loaf of bread, like you wanted to eat the whole loaf of bread, I remember my kids went to Italy and they went on a trip for school and they were like, Mom, like the food, the bread was so different. Everything was so different. And it's like now things are even, things are just so bad right now. So grains in general, we really want to be careful and stay away from. Cholesterol is another myth, causes heart disease. Do you guys know that breast milk is made up of 50 to 60% fat? And a lot of it has got cholesterol in it too. Like if it's good for a baby and God made us to, feed our baby, it's good for us. It's the most perfect. It's the most perfect food that we have. And cholesterol is important for creating hormones. If we keep taking these cholesterol lowering medications, think about it. We are setting businesses up left and right, aren't we? We go around and we take the lower cholesterol medication, and then there's a low T clinic across the street, and everyone's talking about being on pellets. Yes or no? Are you? Okay. So we are, it's kind of like the example of like, if we're going to bake a cake, there's some ingredients that are kind of essential, right? Well, cholesterol is like your essential ingredient. And if your hormones are a cake, that's not happening. So really important to make sure we have cholesterol. It makes the bile acids to digest our own fats. So hard time to digest fats. We can't make if you can't make bile acids, then you won't digest your fats. And then what's the organ that we have trouble with? Gallbladder, right? Important for brain function, right? And anytime you have an injury, for example, my friend actually he was doing like a life insurance blood work. And when he and his wife got their blood work back, his cholesterol was 10,000. He's like, what? Like, do that again. Something's wrong with your program. Test it again, 10,000. Come to find out, he had an acute case of Lyme. So if you go back to the cause, right? Because we're all about cause, look for the cause. They went back and found out he had been bit by a tick, and the cholesterol came on the scene. Why? To protect his nerve system. It wrapped around all the nerve cells because spirochetes and Lyme, they want to chew your nerves, chew them right up. And so that was a thing that if he would have taken a cholesterol lowering medication, it would have killed him because his body was doing the right thing at the right time. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. It's amazing how, God gave us those things that we needed. Do we trust these guys? No, we don't trust them. The last one on the list is toxic food. So we want to trash the toxins, right? So we want to stay away from the frankenfoods, the pesticides, the crickets, the dangerous additives, the hormones, and antibiotics. We're going to have a whole lot. I bet we're going to gather a whole lot of stuff after this about cockroaches and crickets and all kinds of stuff on Herb Family Friends. I mean, clearly it's out there, right?
Well, that's what I, you know, the thing is how much do you believe that, I mean, nowadays we have to go.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to bring the bag and show you the bag. I was like, cheesy puffs. Oh my God, I could totally see ourselves buying that. Looks organic. It's
My
organic.
son-in-law showed me
Oh.
the bag with it on there, on something, but I cannot remember.
Yep. Yep.
Something else.
So we're wanting to get our protein again, Pure Path protein. This is going to be your bone broth, your collagen. That's really, and it's the grass-fed, grass-finished, no pesticides. You're getting 20 grams of protein in the scoop. We really only need about 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal. So you're getting everything that you need. And then what I do in my morning time, I just grab this one and this one, the chocolate in both, and I mix it. I was just telling Rebecca about this. I mix it, and I do mine in water. You guys can throw yours in a blender, but I do mine in water, and then I just add ice cubes to it. It mixes better when the water's not cold, if you're going to do it with water, or you're going to use a shaker bottle, and then you can put ice cubes in it because I like to drink mine cold. So that's something right after a workout that I'll do. You can throw it in the blender. That's probably a lot easier. Throw it in the blender, throw your ice cubes in there, and you're good to go. But that's what I use. I use that every day. Same thing with the greens. You can get your servings. I'm not going to tell you to only do that and not eat vegetables. But you can, my husband would be like, I can get all my servings. No, honey, you cannot get all your servings. And then the multivitamin and minerals. So we've got the men's that's got specific ingredients in there for prostate health. And then the women's got specific ingredients and blends in there that are for breast and female reproductive health. So those are just sort of our basic outlines. How many of you guys know Advanced Plan?
I'm learning.
Okay, you're learning. Good. So I want to talk over or under. If we think about just the basic things for Advanced Plan, these are the basic things. And so when we think about the sugar and the carbohydrates, what we're wanting to do for Advanced Plan is we're eliminating the grains, and that's really all grains. So if you think about your regular noodles, right, your regular rice, your pasta, even quinoa, but quinoa would be considered an ancient grain. So I would say quinoa for core plan. While you're on Advanced Plan, we don't do quinoa, okay? Your bagels, your bread, even Ezekiel bread. So Ezekiel bread would be on the core plan, okay? Any of your sprouted grains would be on the core plan. And you're on Advanced Plan, you follow Advanced Plan if you're trying to heal from a diagnosis, you're trying to overcome, even lose weight, get off certain medications so your body can heal. That's really the purpose of Advanced Plan, okay? So you're going to eat, your fruits are going to be very limited because fruit does turn, even God fruit, right? It does turn to sugar. And so when we're following Advanced Plan, we're trying to lower that sugar amount and increase the good fat amount. That's what we're trying to do, that inverse relationship there. And so we'll stick with berries and Granny Smith apples and grapefruits. Grapefruits are really tart, not sweet at all. And then remember, what does sugar do? We saw the picture of the PET scan, right? Sugar is an anti-nutrient, it's inflammatory, it's all that list of 10, what that is. And so we want to stick with the lower glycemic. And then protein, we're replacing the conventional sources with natural. So this is where you look in your fridge and you're like, all right, my lunch meat, what things are your hot dogs? Applegate's has great hot dogs, so it's a brand. So you can get protein hot dogs from Applegate's. So you're switching out your hot dogs. You can get sausage. Natural Grocers has a really great, fantastic or great organic, grass-fed, grass-finished sausage. Amazing. It's got jalapenos in it as well too. Rebecca, you like the one with jalapenos, yeah? So great way to flip out and then of course you can find a farmer and now is probably a good idea to get a farmer and get a half a cow, grass-fed, grass-finished, get it all prepared for you and stick it in your freezer so you're prepared. Again, same thing, like these are just things that we've done over the course of this year just to be prepared for these shortages that are manufactured. Are we in agreement on that?
Yeah.
Okay, they're manufactured.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Quick question about the manufactured shortages. Is that something that's temporary or gradually just going to?
Well, I feel like we're in that the plan is by 2030. That's their agenda, is by 2030.
And why? Just, to make us weaker. Yeah.
Control. If we're weak, they can't. Disease. Yeah. I mean, there's a depopulation agenda. They're trying to shrink down our population, so all that is, it's manufactured. All of it is. There's plenty of, God gave us everything. He gave us everything that we need on this planet for everything, for life and everything. Like, we don't have to want or need for anything. There are demonic systems in place that are trying to keep us from the things that God gave us. And they're also trying to, screw up our heads and how we look at things. And so that's chapter 1 in my book too. Fats, remove your bad fats and replace with the good ones. So do you guys get that list of the good fats? So we're switching things over. We're switching over the fats, and I don't even say give them away. Just throw that stuff away. Now, when we get into core plan, just the difference is you can have all fruits and vegetables in the core plan because you're not dealing with a diagnosis. You're not trying to lose that weight, because we said, what do we say about being overweight? Being overweight causes all kinds of disorders, right? You saw the map. So we can switch over once we get our weight the way we like it, once we get off all the medications, we've healed from the diagnosis, then we can switch over to core plan, where you're going to have the ancient grains. Can you guys think of ancient grains? Give me some other examples. Yes. What else? Amaranth, yes. Anybody else? Rye, buckwheat, millet. Some of those ancient grains. And when you eat an ancient grain, you're more full. Right? Example, in Zimbabwe, in our clinic in Zimbabwe, they have something called sudza. Everyone in Zimbabwe eats sudza. And so when they had sudza, a couple decades ago, they had the original sudza was very hearty. And so you would eat it, and that was their one meal a day, and they would be full. Then what they did was they started messing with it, making it genetically modified, and it became like sugar. It was white. It was no longer brown and full of nutrients. Then it became fluffy white, and now they got cavities. They got heart disease. We have HIV, like every third person has HIV. Now you throw that in there, and it's like, now we got everything going on, So just trying to teach them about that piece. But and again, as far as core plan, that's really where we should all be able to get to, is that core plan. Once we're trying to overcome, we should all be able to get to that core plan and live in that space, because we're not dealing with a diagnosis anymore. We're just living healthy. And so that's really the goal. The do's and don'ts of label reading, make sure you are looking at those stamps. They're still safe. I'll let you know when I hear something different, but they're still safe. So make sure that one's non-GMO and the other one's USDA organic. And when you're reading labels, like looking at the ingredients, like if you look here, there's only a few ingredients on there. It should make you happy when there's just a few kind of ingredients on there. You can pronounce them and you kind of know what they are. Whereas when you look at this one, like it's got like a million and enrich this, enrich that, right? All these different ingredients on there. Even don't be tricked by this one. Like this looks organic, but if you look at it deeper, it says organic roasted. And the word roasted means really the bad oils too. You would be better served to see peanuts and salt, or almonds and salt. Like that would be your better of the nuts, okay? And then what happens is your taste buds, if your taste buds are used to this one, which we all, maybe all of us were at some point, right? If your taste buds were used to this one, I promise you, your taste buds will change. They are receptors. They will change. You can learn to like everything you don't think that you like right now that is good for you. I promise you, you can, because your tongue is a receptor. You can train kids who don't like vegetables and adults to learn to love vegetables. But part of it is mindset. You have to say, I want to, I choose to, it's my idea, to be able to do that. This is another really good one. I like this. This pancake mix is got almond flour, organic coconut flour. Cassava starch is one you can have on the advanced plan because it doesn't cause your glycemic index to spike. So you'll see a lot of things with cassava starch in it. What happens when you make this pancake compared to that pancake? When you make that pancake, although we know all the bad ingredients in there, when you make one, this is where you could eat a dozen pancakes, yes? Because it's so carbs, you'll be hungry in 30 minutes after carbs. If you eat a meal that has all that good fat in it, then you eat one pancake and you're like, dang, I'm so full. Test me on that. Go home and try it, and they taste just as good. All right, you guys know, this is the last section. You guys know Masha and Dasha, yes? You guys have never heard of Masha and Dasha? Okay, excellent. Masha and Dasha conjoined twins. It's really fun. In Michigan, I worked for a practice, and we had a set of conjoined twins there. And these conjoined twins, they actually have the exact same blood, right? Blood that circulates through the whole body. They share the blood. They share the genetics, right? They share everything genetic-wise. They share the same environment. So we talked about nutrigenomics, right? What makes them different is they have totally different spines. So they did research on these guys, unfortunately. One of the twins would get a cold and the other one wouldn't. One of them had the measles and the other one didn't. So it goes to show you that your nerve supply and getting adjusted and taking care of your spine has everything to do. It is the deciding factor to whether you're going to be healthy or not. Genes and nerve system, a signal from the environment, not the gene itself, activates the expression of your genes. And your brain is that interface between the two. The brain. And then this next piece is the spine. So we talked about the nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord, right? So the spinal cord, this study is about the spinal cord being the organizer of the disease process. The organizer of the disease process. So on here in the bottom it says the thalamic neuron theory says inherent in its capacity to learn and adapt is the central nerve system's ability to learn to be sick. Think about that. To learn to be sick by deranged central nerve circuits, which is subluxation, right? Leading to chronic disease states. Learn to be sick. So without a healthy, the nerve system was totally different in Masha and Dasha. Everything else was the same. Genetics, everything else was the same. It was their nerve system that was different. So what we know is that the subluxation and removal of subluxation is what actually helps to heal the body. That's what actually helps to heal the body. And if we leave it there, it's what allows the body to end up with some sort of a diagnosis. Whether we care if everybody has pain, but what we want is we want you to function at your absolute best. That's what we want. It would be better if we all came in here and none of us had pain. We just came in here because we know when we turn the power on, we're healthier and we're optimized and we're actually activating our system so that we can serve God at the highest level and we are not hindered by our own health issues. So we always check. Everyone in here has been checked, yes? Everyone this year in here has been checked? So foundation of health, your brain controls everything we know, function, healing, and energy. So your spinal cord and nerves, that information superhighway, this is a reminder, I think, for all of us to make sure that we're doing our rehab, we're doing our adjustments, because when we have these different signs of subluxation, then that's when we set ourselves up for a diagnosis. We don't want anybody to have signs of subluxation. We want to just be maintaining and healing ourselves. I love this x-ray. Look at the difference between the two. Can you guys see the difference? What do you see on the left side? And it's going what? Right? And then the one on the right? 43-degree curve. Do you see how beautiful that beautiful curve is? Now, this is Rebecca's favorite testimony.
Hi, everybody. This is Claire. Claire, what are we doing today?
Throwing away my pills.
Throwing away the pills. One of these pills costs how much?
$1,000 for that one.
$1,000 a month.
These are
For just
$38
one.
each.
$38 each for each
After
one of those.
insurance.
After insurance. So what are we doing? We're getting rid of these. Why?
Because I don't need them
Because we're off of all of them. So you came in, how long you been out of care?
since April.
So what were you diagnosed with?
Ulcerative colitis.
Ulcerative colitis going like up to 30 times a day or something like that, right? How's it going now?
Awesome.
That's so great. Anyway, so if you have any health issues that your medical doctor seems incapable of helping you with because no one's getting down to the cause of it, come see us, Herb Family Wellness in North Texas. Herb Family Wellness. Would you say that'd be a good idea?
Yes.
Awesome, because we get to the cause of it and fix that.
Watch her try to put the pills in the container. So she came in and she was 78 pounds. I did her new patient exam. We had to carry her in the door and prop her up and kind of watch her when we evaluated her. And now she's just got off of her and she's got a baby now too. So it's just a beautiful testimony. And that's living the 5 essentials. Like that's what it's about. I wanted to end on a happy note because the crickets were kind of disturbing there. So I hope this was helpful for you guys.